the first sequel to Wes Craven's most well-known franchise that has previously been called the worst and gayest horror movie. But thanks to fans and its lead star, it has been revisited with more appreciation in recent years. This is my review of A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. The movie starts off with a pretty innocent-looking school bus. Not wasting any time with the nightmares here, are we?
The best part of waking up is...
Mommy, why can't Jesse wake up like everybody else?
You mean that's not how everyone wakes up? This is Jesse, played by Mark Patton. Unfortunately for him, he and his family recently moved into Nancy's old house, while his little sister Angela, played by Christy Clark, has a bowl of racist O's. We meet the parents, Cheryl, played by the late Hope Lang, and Ken, played by the late Clu Gallagher. Lisa, played by Kim Myers, arrives to get a ride to school, where we meet Ron Grady, played by Robert Russler. He and Jesse get along real well. There's also Coach Snyder, played by Marshall Bell, who seems to think push-ups are the best form of punishment. After this, Grady does have some information on the Walsh's new house to dispense.
Some chick was locked in there by her mother and she went crazy. She watched her boyfriend get butchered across the street by some maniac.
At the time, Jesse isn't inclined to believe Grady, but something happens that night that might just convince him.
You've got the body. I've got the brain.
It goes without saying that this makes Jesse's already strained sleep pattern even more so. Since Jesse's dad won't let him leave the house without first finishing unpacking, Lisa comes over and helps him out. They find a diary that happens to have belonged to Nancy. Through this, they find entries mentioning Kruger. This more or less confirms what Grady had told Jesse. Plus, there's the whole finding Kruger's knife glove in the furnace thing. Lisa suggests that Jesse may be psychic in a way, and these are premonitions. Can premonitions explain why the Walsh's bird kills the other and attacks the family before exploding in midair? I guess Kruger decided to go the super petty route this time and take out family pets. This, combined with the ever-increasing temperature of the household, seems to be putting everyone on edge. To beat the heat, Jesse goes to Dom's place in the middle of the night. It seems like the type of place I would hang out. Unfortunately, Grady was right again, as Coach Snyder happens to be there too. He decides the best course of action for underage drinking is to make Jesse do laps around the basketball course? Whatever he was planning on doing with some jump ropes after that gets disrupted by several balls smacking him in the face. You heard me. Schneider is then dragged to the showers where he's strung up and towel whipped. Then he's sliced and diced. All of this culminates in Jesse finding himself covered in blood and wearing Kruger's glove. He gets a police escort for his sleepwalk of shame back home. Naturally, his father questions what drugs he's on. If only it were that easy. His mother wants to take Jesse to a psychiatrist, but his father believes that corporal punishment would be better. Either way, it appears as though the events of last night weren't just a nightmare, but this definitely is.
Fuck this.
Jesse confronts his father about the history of the house, which should remind all of us to question a low price tag on a place. With Schneider's murder weighing heavily on his mind, Lisa has Jesse drive them to a place where Kruger used to bring the kids he took. Well, I guess that was a dead end. So with a literal threat to his sister, Jesse is forced to use familiar tactics in order to avoid having nightmares. All of this is putting a severe strain on Jesse and his friend group. Even Lisa's party can't get his mind off of things. Or Lisa herself, for that matter. Listen, all I'm saying is that would be considered a desirable feature for a lot of people. Freaked out and severely sleep deprived, Jesse goes to Grady's so that he can make sure Jesse won't do anything regrettable. Unfortunately, Grady takes the Glenn route and falls asleep. It's the same feeling after eating too much Taco Bell. Well, goodbye, Grady. You were probably the least bully-like bully in horror movie history. No time to mourn, though. The police are here. Back to Lisa's it is. It's either a good or a bad thing that Lisa sees a guy covered in blood, claiming to have killed multiple people, and still lets him into her house. Lisa points out what Nancy figured out, which is that Krueger cannot exist without their fear. That's all well and good, but Krueger's already appeared in your living room, so what you gonna do? Apparently stabbing him doesn't do anything. He then goes to make Lisa's pool party a living hell for all of the guests, and leaves when faced with a gun. Worst party crasher ever. Lisa knows where he is, though, and drives to the abandoned power plant. Well, that ought to haunt my nightmares for a while. Delving into the building proves just as traumatic for Lisa. At least she finds Jesse. Krueger. Her plan is to plead with Jesse, wherever he is in there, and use the power of love to banish Krueger. It actually works, and Jesse emerges with second-degree burns. I guess nothing could be traced back to Jesse, because once he's well enough, he returns to school. With the remainder of the surviving students, that is. Less stops for the bus driver, I guess. There's always the classic Craven cliffhanger, though. And with that, the credits roll. The practical effects are quite good here, with several iconic moments, particularly during the Jesse transformation / Freddy possession scene. Kevin Yeager is responsible for a majority of them, with Mark Sjostrom handling the transformation. While the Freddy we see depicted here may not feel quite the same as the first, or what followed in the next sequels, he is deeply unsettling. While I know the acting isn't the greatest ever, it's not anywhere close to the worst out there. Plus, I really do enjoy the cast all around here. Obviously, Robert Englund and Mark Patton are my favorites. There is a level of 80s camp here that's rather enjoyable. Technically speaking, you can thank this sequel for there being a franchise around Freddy, because Craven saw Nightmare on Elm Street as a one-and-done thing, and New Line was struggling to keep its head above water. The documentary Scream Queen: My Nightmare on Elm Street from 2019 has shed a tremendous amount of light on everything that went into the making of this film, and it makes me appreciate it even more. Some scenes can come across as rather goofy and out of place. There are plenty of plot holes and things that just don't make a lot of sense, like the pool party scene. Who's sleeping there? This also opens up a whole debate about how Freddy makes it into the real world, and kills teens that goes against a lot of what A Nightmare on Elm Street set up. Robert Shea was said to frequently overstep his role in the making of this film. He would micromanage and give direction that should have been up to shoulder. This is one reason why I think aspects of Freddy's Revenge are convoluted from time to time. I'm not terribly fond of the ending, not just because it's literally love conquers evil, but because it feels forced and rushed. I see Lisa and Jesse more as good friends rather than love interests. While this movie does have a lot of gay text, there is also some anti-gay text. I've already mentioned the ending, and this applies to it too. I would recommend having a look at Scream Queen to get a better understanding of what I mean. David Chaskin has previously placed blame on the gay subtext, or overtext, whatever you want to call it, firmly on Mark Patton, which I personally find unfair and pretty bullshit, as he was the one responsible for writing the story to begin with. Even Jack Shoulder has feigned ignorance in regards to the subtext, while everyone else was very much aware of it. With all that being said, I'm giving A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, 8 out of 10 bloody thumbs up. I've mentioned several times before that Freddy's Revenge is my favorite of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. I realized this only about halfway through my first time watch of it. It's not flawless by any means. And yes, it has a lot of cons to it, but that doesn't detract from how much I and many others enjoy it. I'm sincerely glad to see people coming around and giving it another chance. I give Mark Patton himself a lot of credit for this, especially with the release of the Scream Queen documentary, something else that I adore and didn't hesitate in the slightest to pre-order. And if you haven't seen it, then I highly recommend giving it a watch. For a movie that seemed pretty surface level and was often disregarded by fans of Freddy, there were a lot of ups and downs that went into its history. Something I would like everyone to keep in mind who don't like this movie is this: during the 80s and after, this was the only piece of solace and safety a lot of queer people had access to. I would recommend Freddy's Revenge to slasher fanatics, fans of 80s campiness, the LGBTQA+ horror community, and anyone who would like to see a different sort of Scream Queen. See you later. If you're looking for more 80s slasher flicks, or LGBTQA+ horror, check out my reviews of A Nightmare on Elm Street 1984 and Scream 1996. Thank you to my patrons Michael Musail, The Horror Show, Bronson Wright Wolf, Diana Moe, and Sean Sheridan for supporting the channel.